after COVID-19. You've heard a lot of talk on Fox News about the Great Reset and how dangerous it is that those malevolent liberals, those bad Democrats are going to try to use this pandemic to push their socialist policies. Well, you'll just as much see parties on the right using the pandemic to push right-wing policies. So what will the world look like after the vaccines roll out and the pandemic is crushed? So I think we're going to see some big changes in the supply chain. We're going to go from a just-in-time supply chain to, make sure that you have it supply chain. So we're going to move away from globalism. We're going to have much more domestic manufacture. We're going to have much more protectionism. We're going to have much less freedom. So Freedom House measures freedom and democracy around the world. And for 13 straight years, the world has steadily become less free. That's right, 13 straight years we've become less free. So we have all sorts of democracies tipping in a more authoritarian direction, such as Brazil, Hungary, Poland, etc. So whenever there's an emergency, government seizes more power. They restrict freedom of the press. They institute contact tracing for things like COVID-19. They seize emergency powers. And at the end of the emergency, they never give them all back 100%. So we're going to have more centralized government power, interference in our lives. International travel is going to be more difficult, more expensive, more regulated. People are going to recognize that they don't need to travel nearly as much. So we'll probably have less business travel. People will recognize how much they can get done online. We'll have a centralization of business with Amazon and other companies that will deliver to your door, taking a bigger share of the economy. People will get used to having their groceries delivered to them. That's going to change. We're going to have a rise of nationalism, xenophobia, racism. People are going to be more afraid of that which is different. So that which is different, COVID reminds us, may very well be deadly. So in benign times, it's easy to think that that which is different is just interesting and novel. But COVID reminds us that that which is different can be deadly. We're going to have a big decline in colleges. Like, colleges are going to go out of business. A lot of colleges will go out of business permanently. A lot of education will shift to online only. What are some other changes? So we're going to definitely have less freedom. Okay, let's have a look here at the chat. I get the feeling they want to send us back to the medieval era where people never left their hometowns. Okay, who's they? I don't think there's anyone who's conspiring to send you back to a medieval period, but there'll simply be less freedom. The powers that be. And one thing that was interesting about the pandemic is that there was no form of government that handled it any better. Like, democracies did not handle the pandemic better than authoritarian governments, and authoritarian governments proportionally did not handle the pandemic any more than democracies. So there were some democracies that apparently handled it very efficiently, and some authoritarian countries that handled it very efficiently, and in the other direction. So maybe the American reputation for competence will take a hit. Given the widespread ravaging, we'll probably have more mail-in voting. Probably have a world that's more conducive to doing things online as a result of COVID-19 pandemics. What do I think of Swedish and Belarusian responses to... I would have to know the statistics. So I know that Sweden did not lock down like many countries, but then they started locking down more. Is that accurate over the past month? So Sweden had a pretty high proportionally death rate. So I don't know. I'll be open to finding out. I think we're definitely going to have increasing nationalism, an increasing trend towards authoritarian government. We're going to have more government intervention in our lives. We're going to have more regulation. That COVID is not just this lone virus that came along and wreaked havoc. We've had AIDS, we've had SARS. We now see the danger of just allowing people in from many countries without adequate screening. So I think we'll have increased suspicion of strangers, increased suspicion of overseas travelers. We're going to have an increased reluctance to depend on other countries such as China for our supply chain. We're going to have a continued decoupling from trade with China. And this was all going on prior to COVID. We're going to have a rise in wealth and power, probably shifting towards the northeast countries, China, Japan, Korea, and a little bit of a diminishing in the power of Europe. So tens of thousands of small businesses will probably go out of business permanently, particularly restaurants, and they'll be replaced by big businesses like Amazon, Walmart, etc. And then the other thing on my mind is comparison, status competition, how we compare ourselves to others. So we tend to envy people who are above us. And so we don't envy people who are completely unlike us. So we don't envy the Queen of England. Right? We can't even comprehend what life is like for the Queen of England. But we tend to envy people that we can relate to, such people we knew in high school who have dramatically out-achieved us. So we don't think about people who are below us in social status. We hardly spend any time thinking about people who are below us in status. We tend to scorn them. But we tend to spend a lot of time thinking about what people who we envy, what they're thinking about, what's going on with them. So high achieving minority groups such as Jews in Europe during World War II, Chinese in Southeast Asia, high achieving middleman minority groups, they're often the objects of tremendous envy by the majority, and then during turbulent times they get pogromed, they get expelled, they get slaughtered. So envy often leads to genocide. And envy tends to make us less happy. So how do we deal with our inherent tendency to continually compare ourselves? Okay, I was into the Alexander's technique stuff, then I saw a few typos on your website. Of course, anyone that has typos can't be taken seriously, bro. Got to fix that. Okay, you got to give me an example. I did not see any typos on there, but you can't just make these generalizations, bro. Like a real professional, when he makes a generalized statement like that, he backs it up with specifics. You need links and citations, bro. I mean, I thought you were a highly educated man. I thought you knew these things. We're reconnected. You know, we're reconnected and it feels so good. We're reconnected and we're understood. Can't get any better than that. All right, we've got some lovely tennis courts coming up here. Anyone up for a nice game of tennis? Okay, so what do we do about our innate tendency to compare and despair? So we never compare ourselves to people who are completely unlike us. So we don't compare ourselves to royalty. But what about friends from high school who are high achievers, or people in the same profession who've gone on to 10 times as much success? So, for example, I went to high school with Jeff Blauser. Blauser was a shortstop on the high school baseball team. I never had any skill with baseball, so even though Jeff Blauser went on to something like a 12-year Major League Baseball career, and I think he was twice Major League Baseball All-Star, I've never spent much time envying him because I have no talents playing baseball. All right? So, there are people... Someone report this man for unnecessary strolling in LA. Bro, podcasting is a protected category. You're allowed to leave the house for podcasting. I'm a cultural icon here in Los Angeles, bro. I was on the cover of Los Angeles Weekly with Sarah Silverman, like the most interesting people in Los Angeles. So you need to look that up. Look for Sarah Silverman on the same cover. Dig that up. And I'm a cultural treasure, bro. I'm not doing anything illegal. This isn't wrong. This is not wrong. Are we accomplices? No, bro, I can just flip the mask over my nose at any time. You're not enabling me because we're not doing anything wrong. I'm a cultural icon. Just look at LA Weekly or Rolling Stone back in 1999. I think they named me like top, the hot 40 things, hot 40 things, or hot 30 things, or I was in their hot issue, 1999. So it's been a while, bro. But okay, it's only 21 years. Strolling on the street, trafficking in hazardous biological welfare material. Okay, so I don't feel any despair that Jeff Blauser, my high school mate, well, we were just the slightest of acquaintances, but there are about 400 people, I think, in my grade at Placer High School. He went on to a big career in Major League Baseball, and we had no idea. I mean, he hit 400, but he wasn't amazing, but I don't feel any jealousy over him. But like take someone like Evan Wright. So let's have a look here. So there's the Hustler building. So Evan Wright, I think he started writing for Hustler magazine in something like 1996, and in the fall of 1995, I decided I'd write a book on the porn industry, and so I went into Hustler several times in 1996 while wearing my yarmulke on my head and to get access to the back issues of Hustler Erotic Video Guide just for research purposes, bro. And so I'm going in there like furiously photocopying, some of their interviews and articles, and I think I ran into Evan Wright there circa 1996. And there's something that all of us writers in and around the industry would talk about. The continual refrain was going mainstream. How do we get out of the salt mines of the porn industry and create like a mainstream life, a real life, like get out of this stigmatized sewer? And Evan Wright, better than anyone else, did that. He burst on the scene in, I think, late 1998 with a cover story for LA Weekly, and then he started writing like major cover stories for Rolling Stone magazine. So we were peers for a few years. Then he just jumped to gigantic success. He wrote a very well received book on the invasion of Iraq, and I think Evan Wright wrote the profile of me for Rolling Stone in 1999. He hired me to do some writing for him in December of 1998. He was working for Seth Wachowski. Do you remember Seth Wachowski? He had one of the first big famous internet porn sites. And so I think he paid me $1,000 to write some article about the Pope. He wanted to make fun of the Pope. And then Evan went on to this huge success, man. He was writing like regular major cover stories for Rolling Stone magazine. He was like the new Tom Wolfe, the new Hunter Thompson. Then he went to Iraq in 2003, and he wrote, very well reviewed book on the Iraq invasion. He embedded in Iraq. Yeah, Jeff Blauser, he's not listed among Placer High School notable alumni. That's crazy. He was a Major League Baseball All-Star. He was with the Braves. He went to the World Series, I think, with the Braves. He played something like 10 years in the major leagues. How can he not be a notable alumni? Okay, so Evan Wright embedded. Oh, I'm not listed on Placer High School notable alumni. Okay, can you talk about Mike Fisher being envious of Skip Bayless? Okay, great. So I will put a link in the chat. Maybe Ricardo will put a link into the chat where Mike Fisher just unloads on Skip Bayless. Now, prior to watching this video, I'd never even heard of Mike Fisher. But it's very common when you hear sports writers, they loathe Skip Bayless. They hate Skip Bayless. They have a passionate detestation for Skip Bayless. And so why? Why do they hate Skip Bayless? Like, what's in it for them? And they provide, when someone loathes someone and provides the most bogus of reasons, it's interesting because then that there's something going on that's like way beyond their stated reasons. So Mike Fisher, who I've never heard of, apparently he wrote a book on Dallas Cowboys winning their first Super Bowl in the 1990s, a book I'd never heard of. And I love reading books about Dallas Cowboys. I haven't been accosted because I'm regarded with great respect. I'm a cultural icon in Beverly Hills, bro. Check me out with Sarah Silverman on the cover of LA Weekly. I was Hustler Magazine's Asshole of the Month in its Christmas 1999 issue. So you accrue a certain status when you accomplish these cultural iconic moments. So, never heard of Mike Fisher, and he unloads on Skip Bayless, and his primary criticism is that Skip Bayless, in his book on the 1995 Cowboys, that was the last Super Bowl they won, he has a chapter about these widespread rumors going on in Dallas that Troy Aikman was gay. And Skip is very clear that there's absolutely no evidence to support these rumors. So at a certain point, accurate reporting of rumors is a journalistically responsible thing to do. Because at a certain point, the undernews deserves to be in the overt news. So Skip Bayless included this rumor, devoted a chapter to this book, saying, what a crazy season it was, that the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys at the time, Barry Switzer, he thought that one, that his quarterback Troy Aikman was gay. 2, he thought that Troy Aikman was a racist. 3, he was convinced that Troy Aikman had used the N-word on an underperforming wide receiver, not Michael Irvin, but another one. And it was just part of the crazy times with the Dallas Cowboys during that 1995 season. So you'll also see Jeff Pearlman in his book on the glory years of the Dallas Cowboys, 1992 to 1995. He also, rips Skip Bayless again for talking about the rumors that Troy Aikman was homosexual. Now, Skip never said he was homosexual. He just talked about this widespread rumor that was believed by senior members of the Dallas Cowboys organization. And so that both Jeff Pearlman and this Mike Fisher, hated Skip Bayless for supposedly, publishing an unverified rumor. Look, if you note that there's no evidence for it, then that's completely kosher. So their hatred is bogus. It just smacks of hatred for someone who outperforms you. We tend to envy people who are like us, such as in a similar profession, such as sports writing, but who go on to 100 times as much success as we are. So Skip Bayless was like the first major sports writer to hire an agent. Right? He was a huge deal. I think his first season covering the Cowboys was when they lost, was it the January 1979 Super Bowl to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 35-31. And Skip noted that the Steelers showed how to defeat the Tom Landry flex defense in that game by passing on first down. So Terry Bradshaw passed for something like 200 yards just on first down in that contest. So Skip wrote 3 excellent books on the Dallas Cowboys, including the first book, God's Coach, about Tom Landry, which was excellent. And then Mike Fisher's other big accusation against Skip Bayless was that Skip Bayless got Alexander Wright, who was, I think, drafted in the second round by the Cowboys circa 1990 as a wide receiver. He went on to minimal success, and he blasted Skip Bayless for getting Alexander Wright to talk to him about how he was molested as a child. And then, according to Mike Fisher, Skip Bayless violated that confidence and published it in the newspaper the next day. So Mike Fisher alleged that Skip Bayless got Alexander Wright to confide in him because he pretended to be a priest, or he pretended to be some kind of clergyman, that he tended to provide some Christian Bible-based godly counseling to Alexander Wright, then got Alexander to confide in him and then betrayed him. So that's the content of the argument. So journalists tend to hate their competitors who get really good stories. So Skip Bayless got a really good story. I severely doubt that Skip Bayless told Alexander Wright that he was a priest or a clergyman. Now, as a journalist, one of your most essential tools is the ability to get others to confide in you. So think about Neil Strauss. Neil Strauss has written a ton of celebrity profiles, and he consistently gets celebrities to confide things to him that they'd never tell anyone else. And why is Neil Strauss able to do that? Because of his traumatic upbringing, he's able to trauma bond with celebrities. Usually people become celebrities because they have this abnormal thirst to become famous, and it's virtually always a coping mechanism for dealing with a traumatic childhood. So there's such a thing as trauma bonding. So why have I been able to get so many people to confide things in me that they'd never tell any other journalist or any other live streamer or any other person? Because I'm able to trauma bond with them so quickly. Like, I had this messed up childhood, and I'm able to relate to people who come from similar levels of trauma, and then we very quickly trauma bond. We just sense it in each other. And so by trauma bonding, it's a very fast form of bonding, and it's fast and it's deep. And so you get people to confide in you. So it's obviously jealousy that's just driving this widespread loathing of Skip Bayless by his peers. That they just think he's just this awful human being because he simply outperforms them. Like Skip Bayless, I think he started at the Los Angeles Times in something like 1977. Then his agent negotiated his contract with the Dallas Morning News, something like 1978. And Skip Bayless's face was going up on billboards in the Dallas area by 1979. Locating John David Ebert to open up was a masterclass in trauma bonding. So it was particularly effective for me with porn stars, right? Because virtually all porn stars come out of trauma. And so we were able to trauma bond very, very quickly. So the people who openly admit their trauma are using it to manipulate you. No, not necessarily. And it's not even anything overt that you say. It's just a vibe that you give out, right? When people sense that you've been traumatized, that we recognize each other, right? Just like homosexuals recognize each other, and Jews often recognize each other. People from traumatic childhoods often recognize each other, and it's not overt. It's not necessarily things you say. So I've been able to get people to confide in me, not on the basis, generally speaking, of anything explicit or overt that I tell them, but they just get this sense that I'm someone safe for them to confide in. So I've often had people say, "Why am I telling you this?" It's one of the most common things that people have ever said to me. Yeah, real recognizes real. Like, all sorts of people would say to me, like, "Why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you this?" That they felt compelled to open up, or they've wanted to open up. I remember Asia Carrera, the porn star, that she dug into like all these things from high school to show me, to buttress her claims about her SAT scores or some stuff like that other people had derided. And I came along, I came to her home. She was married to the director Bud Lee at the time. And like she dug deep to tell me all about the trauma of her childhood. She had one parent who was Japanese, one parent who was German, and I think she was beaten. She just had a horrible childhood. Anyway, I'm still here. I'm just putting the phone in my pocket for a minute, so just hang loose. Okay, so yeah, Asia Carrera, remember. Okay, I just had to do a very quick investigation to see if there was any cottaging going on, and even though we're in Beverly Hills, even though that was the restroom where George Michael got busted, there was no cottaging going on. So thank God. I'm on cottaging patrol looking for any illicit behavior. I'm going to suss it out. So I was talking about how I broke the Mark Wallace story in something like April 25, 1998. And found out that he was likely patient zero for HIV transmission of at least a dozen porn stars, possibly more. And I managed to break the story, forced the industry to give him a proper HIV test, which showed that he was positive. Then I got all these solicitation of opinions. Then I got all these porn stars who caught HIV in all likelihood from Mark Wallace, who confided in me. And then then I even got Mark Wallace to open up to me. And that was not easy, because like he could blame me for ruining his life and for ending his career. That's what he did. He blamed me for ending his career. But he still opened up to me. And I got some extraordinary interviews with him in 1998. So, okay. So, yeah, journalists get really angry at other journalists who get people to open up, particularly against their self-interest. I have one friend who became a professor of philosophy. He used to work in the field of journalism. Yeah, I stopped him from committing more evil. So I had a friend who worked in the field of journalism, and that was what he wanted his career to be. He loved it, but he found it just morally reprehensible, because in journalism, what you're usually doing is you're looking for one outstanding angle on a story. It's going to make a person look really bad, because that's the most newsworthy, attention-worthy thing, is to grab some one aspects of one thing that a person said, one thing that a person's done, just highlight that, and that's the angle that makes a story pop. But you're doing a lot of damage to to an individual by focusing on one, slip of the tongue or one, behavioral mistake. So how I would understand that in ethical terms is, yes, you are doing damage to that one person by focusing on his one slip of the tongue, but you have to weigh that up against the benefits that you're doing to other people to keep them informed. So in Judaism, there are ostensibly all these laws against gossip and slander. But if you know any rabbis, they gossip at least as much as anyone else, but they don't call it gossip. They call it talking shop, or they say, I need to know for the good of the community. But in reality, whoa, to Mr. Ford, the regulator, thank you. Thank you for that contribution as I stay on the patrol to keep our public bathrooms safe from cottaging. It's not easy work, but blessings to you for supporting this holy work. So rabbis will say, I need this information so that I can better help run the community. But in reality, they don't need the information any more than the ordinary Jew. Like if there's a Jew in shul who's going to get busted by the FBI for, white-collar felonious behavior, why wouldn't everyone need to know it? There's a Jew in shul who tends not to pay his debts, tends to be dishonest in business. Why would everyone not want to know it? There's a Jew in shul who's soliciting prostitutes. Why would everyone not benefit by knowing it? So the thing about journalism and gossip is that the damage that it does the person who's violating social norms can be immense. And the benefits of publicizing this information are fragmented. But when you add up the fragmented benefits, that everybody is better informed about somebody who's done something wrong, like the benefits will often completely outweigh the damage done to that individual. But because the benefits are fragmented among many, many people, then there's no constituency. Whoa, thank you, anonymous professor. Whoa, Hashem, an anonymous professor and not bored, are showering their bounty upon me, giving me the strength that I need to continue my anti-cottaging mission at the finest public restrooms in Beverly Hills. I'm just going to make sure that there's no funny business going on. Blessings. Shekels needed to anti-cottage. Blessings. Okay, so with gossip and with journalism and say with trade, free trade, right? The benefits of free trade are spread out among maybe millions of parties, but those who are hurt by free trade, particular manufacturers, are relatively small. Right? It's a tiny number of manufacturers who are, say, going to be devastated by free trade, and then there will be a larger number of workers who are going to be hurt by free trade, right? But the benefits of free trade will likely be spread to millions of people, but the benefits will be so small that they have no collective interest in organizing to protect those benefits. While for those who are hurt by free trade, or for those who are hurt by gossip, or for those who are hurt by journalism, the hurt is substantial, and so they have an incentive to organize. So another criticism I've heard about Skip Bayless is that he said that Johnny Manziel was an alcoholic. That was his opinion. Now, in 12-step protocol, in AA protocol, it's not for an outsider to diagnose anyone else as being an alcoholic. It's just in 12-step language, it's only people diagnose themselves as an addict. So Skip, when he called Johnny Manziel, the first-round bust, draft pick of the Cleveland Browns, quarterback who turned out to be a bust, who was drinking a lot and misbehaving and not doing his study and his preparation. So Skip was violating 12-step protocol, but who cares, right? Let's say that it's not in accord with AA's traditions, but Skip, to the best of my knowledge, is not a member of AA, and even if he is, it's not really for outsiders to bust him publicly for violating AA's traditions. So I'm just struck that the overwhelming hatred for Skip Bayless by his other journalists is because he's so much more successful than them. Like, there were billboards going around Dallas by 1980, featuring Skip Bayless. He was earning, 2-3 times what his peers were making for his column, and he was a superstar. By 1980, he was a sports columnist superstar, probably without parallel, and that success, excited huge envy by his peers who just want to bring him down. I remember interviewing Lowell Cohn, who was a superstar columnist for San Francisco Chronicle and the San Francisco Examiner. And I used to cover the San Francisco 49ers between 1985 and 1987 when I worked for Cahill Radio. And Lowell Cohn, he made the point that Skip was not a wordsmith, right? Skip did not write as well as Lowell Cohn. Lowell Cohn had a PhD in English from Stanford University, right? The guy did a PhD, then he started writing movie reviews, and then he got into sports writing as an accident. But what Skip's ability was, he was able to read the zeitgeist. Skip was able to detect what everybody wanted to talk about. And so he would just be able to laser in. And he still has that ability. He probably comes up with most of the topics for his morning TV show. What's it called? Undisputed with Shannon Sharp. And so Skip has an ability to intuit what people want to talk about. And he has an incredible degree of courage to say things out loud that other people are only thinking, to call people out, to challenge them in ways that most other journalists just would not be able to do. So that's Skip Bayless. But that touches on the topic of envy. People don't like to talk about envy. So let's talk about envy. Talk to me about envy. What role does envy play in your life? So, for example, I told you all our scribes in the porn industry, we all longed to go mainstream. We all wanted to get out of porn and start writing on any other topic. We were tired of being big fish in the small pond of the porn industry, and so I was getting, in the late 90s, into the 2000s, getting 10, 15,000 daily readers to my porn gossip blog, and I think, I should be able to translate this into another sphere of life. I want to get out of writing on the porn industry. Well, there's one person who really did it big time, was Evan Wright. So those he left behind probably experienced a lot of envy. Evan Wright wrote the 1999 Rolling Stone profile of me. These strolls are providing Luke with a wonderful tan. So comparison is just like an inherent way that the brain functions. So we compare to inform ourselves about what's going on. Come on, man, where's the quality? Okay, so we compare for informational purposes. We compare for protection purposes. And what's the other main reason? To inform, to protect. All right, and then there's one other major reason that we constantly compare ourselves with others. I guess to profit, to learn how to do things more effectively. Have you ever seen a white person using a leaf blower in Los Angeles? It always seems to be Mexicans who use leaf blowers. But the problem is that when we compare, we also tend to despair. Like, it's really easy once you start comparing yourself with others to go into a downward spiral. But how do we cope? So I kind of spent my life comparing and despairing, and I would always naturally tend to perform these mental gymnastics whereby whenever I compared myself to anyone else, I would always try to find a frame or an angle whereby I was superior to them. So if I was to say compare myself to JFRP, my natural tendency was like, oh yeah, he gets 20 times as many viewers and income from streaming, but he's just cucking and telling the audience what they want to hear. You know, I'm more honest. I'm providing higher brow content. I have more moral and intellectual integrity. Like, that's how my brain naturally works. Like, I look for an angle whereby I'm superior. And then, let's say there comes a time when I'm getting 2,000 live viewers, and there's some young whippersnapper coming along with just 50 live viewers, and he's talking about, yeah, Luke gets a lot of viewers, but that's because he deals in a lot of salacious material, and I make sure that my streams are always uplifting. Like, he panders to the lowest common denominator, but I make sure to morally and intellectually challenge my audience. So then my brain would naturally shift to, well, I got a huge audience. This guy's nothing. This guy's a nobody. So we don't tend to spend any time thinking about people who are below us. Like, scorn is the emotion. So when we compare ourselves and find that people are below us in status, then we rarely think about them. We just dismiss them. We don't even really consider their humanity. We just dehumanize them, dismiss them. And we only really, Luke is still alpha walking in the LA scene. So we really only think about people who are equal or above us in social status, and also people who we can relate to. So how I've been able to overcome compare and despair is that I've taken on the 12-step mindset that wherever I am in life, whatever I've been through and whatever I've done, that there was a reason and a purpose that God's going to use to help me be of benefit to others. So all the crazy, embarrassing, awkward things that I've done, well, God's going to find a way for me to be able to use that to benefit other people. So when I look at my peers, and they're almost all married with kids and they have mortgages and they're far more successful than I am, then I think, okay, well, God's going to use my struggles in a way that's going to be of service to other people. So there's an approach in 12-step that we're not better or worse than anyone else. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not smarter or less intelligent than others, that we're not more or less accomplished in different fields. It's not a denial of reality. It's really in reference to our value to God. And so, to the extent I can take in that worldview, it helps me avoid compare and despair. So one is God's just going to use wherever I'm at to be of service to others. And two, in God's eyes, no one's better or worse. And so that kind of helps me to calm down and to self-regulate and get out of compare and despair. So I've just taken on this new writing exercise at night. It's kind of in line with the John Sarno teachings that most of our health problems and most of our physical pain is the result of unconscious rage. Whoa, you do a service to us all. Thank you so much, Professor. So I'm taking on this new writing exercise where I just muse, right, freely, like, what painful truth am I ignoring today? So I just muse on that. So one painful truth is I'm wasting my time. Like, instead of live streaming so much, I should be studying more, doing more preparation for my streams, so do fewer streams and higher quality. Instead of doing so many solo streams, I should make more efforts to line up guests. So I am wasting my time. That's a huge fear. So that could be a very painful truth. So I look at that. I'm wasting my time. When I sell my car with a sagging headliner, I'll know I'm ready for my next level of success. So then another painful truth that I muse on is I'm not using my time to further my own goals. Say I'm spending too much time on Twitter and social media. I should be spending more time reading serious books. Or another thing, another painful truth that I muse on. I should be spending my time making more money. Like I should be saving for retirement. I should be building my income, building my savings so that I can get married and have kids and support them. Like that's what's most important. And all this, live streaming nonsense. This is a distraction from a gaping open wound, festering in the reality of my life. Is that I'm not earning enough money. Like if I had money, it'd be a lot easier to get a wife and then to be able to support children. And so I'm distracting myself by, activities for which there's, very little need. And maybe I'm just, feeding my own ego here. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice. And I'm just living in delusion. Need to send Luke more money so he can live stream and still have babies. So, I wonder, am I just, much of the time, am I just streaming because I like the sound of my own voice? Am I just live streaming because I'm an attention whore? Am I just live streaming because I want to live in a delusion that I have something important to say? Am I just live streaming as a means of distracting myself from gaping, festering, open wounds in my life that really deserve much more attention and more conventional, approaches such as, hard conventional work to earn money, rather than spending so much time in this, live streaming, grandiose, narcissistic delusion. So that could be a painful truth that's operating in my life. So I'm just writing about all these things that might be painfully true in my life. Whoa! Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Whoa, anonymous professor. I'm so grateful and humbled, and thank you so much for your bountiful support over the years. Years you've been supporting the show. So another thing that I've been journaling on is I've got all these sponsees. I've got about a dozen sponsees. And maybe I'm disconnected from my higher power. Like maybe let's have a look at this. So it's coming up on Hanukkah. So very nice, very nice. So maybe I'm disconnected from my higher power. Like maybe I need to, look to my own recovery. Maybe I'm spending so much time, helping sponsees. Maybe that's a distraction from my own recovery. Maybe I'm not spending enough time in prayer and meditation. Maybe I'm just, going through the paces, doing my 12-step recovery by rote. Like maybe there are things in my recovery that I need to pay more attention to. Maybe I need to, reach out to my sponsor. So that could be a painful truth. Another painful truth is that there could be people in all sorts of pain near me who need help, and I'm just ignoring them because I'm just like preparing for live streams. Maybe I'm spending way too much time overthinking. Yeah, maybe I'm ignoring people in pain, people who need help around me. Maybe I need to give more attention to people I see in my daily life. Maybe I need to be a little bit more concerned about their welfare. Maybe I need to be more considerate in the things that I say to them. That could be a painful truth. Another painful truth could be maybe I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm not practicing good hygiene, good sleep hygiene. And maybe I'm watching too much Netflix. Maybe I'm watching too many movies. Maybe I'm watching too many shows on Amazon Prime Video. Maybe I need to be doing more serious reading. Or what's another painful truth that I might be avoiding? The painful truth might be that I need to spend more time writing. That maybe I was put on this earth to be a writer, and I'm distracting myself by live streaming because it's easier than sitting down and doing the hard work of writing. So my parents would often tell me, don't take the easy way out. Like that was a constant refrain from my parents. So my tendency is to always look for the easy way. And so instead of live streaming, maybe I should be, working more on my blog posts and even writing another book. Maybe, that's the hard work I need to delve into. And then maybe I need to spend more time journaling and working on my, recovery from chronic fatigue syndrome by investigating whether unconscious rage is behind many of my health problems. So maybe I need to spend more time delving into, say, painful childhood issues that may still be with me, or if I did have unconscious rage, what might it possibly be about? And so I've also been journaling on my self-image. Like, okay, I see myself as an honest person. What are some areas where I may be dishonest and I'm ignoring that because I'm so dedicated to self-conception of myself as an honest person? Where am I cheating? Where am I lying? Where am I deceiving? I have a self-conception that I'm a good person. So where am I being a bad person? I have a self-conception that I'm a blessing to other people. Where am I a detriment to other people? I have a self-conception that I add, joy and value to other people when I interact with them. Where am I being a burden to others? Where am I bringing other people down? I have a self-conception that I'm a serious thinker, that I read serious books. You're doing fine, Luke. Don't beat yourself up too much. It's okay to be kind to yourself sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not doing this in a way to beat myself down. It's just a way to explore like unconscious rage, things that I may be, blocking myself off from seeing. It's not something that brings me down when I do it. It's just something that kind of opens up the realm of possibility, kind of opens up reality, so that I just muse about what are aspects of reality that I'm missing, that I'm denying. And you know what's a lot easier is to muse and journal about this stuff. It's a lot easier than having strangers or friends or family like bring things up and point them out to you. So it's a lot easier when you can uncover, painful truths yourself rather than get humiliated by life experiences. And my father would often tell me, you'll only learn through pain. So it's a lot easier to journal out your barely conscious feelings and fears than to get tripped up. So in early February 1988, I was coming off my most successful semester of schooling, straight A's, 18 units, straight A's. And I was now taking 21 units. I was working about 30 hours a week. I had about $40,000 saved. I'd been accepted into UCLA. I was going to major in economics. Like, my life is ostensibly going great. But I keep having this very inconvenient and awkward thought. I kept thinking, I felt under tremendous strain. And I remember my stepmother said, wow, if you're under this much strain at community college, how are you going to do when you get to Oxford one day? So I was on a mission to go to Oxford, get my PhD in economics from Oxford. And under this strain, I kept having the thought, awkward, embarrassing thought, I'm going to break through to success or I'm going to break down. Either way, I'm going to get the love that I need. I did not want that thought. I tried to push that thought away. When a couple of weeks later, I collapsed into 6 years of chronic fatigue syndrome, largely. So prior to getting sick with chronic fatigue syndrome, I was haunted by this thought that I'm going to need to break down to get the love that I need. So that's an example of like barely conscious, unconscious rage to bring to the surface through writing about it, and experience the emotional pain. Got into UCLA in economics, you got to have at least 130 IQ. My niece graduated there a few years ago. Respect, thank you. So it's much more effective to experience the emotional pain of acknowledging these awkward and inconvenient and shameful thoughts than to have them wreak havoc with your physical health. And in year 2000, my family paid for me to go back to Australia to see doctors of their choice. and one of them was a psychiatrist. I spent about 3 hours with her, and she came back with a report to my family with my blessing. I welcomed her sharing her thoughts with my family that that Luke's collapse into chronic fatigue syndrome was a face-saving way for him to fail, and he was failing because of lack of friendships, lack of social connections, lack of relationships, and so he could somaticize, meaning he could invoke all these medical conditions for which there was no medical explanation. This mysterious chronic fatigue syndrome collapse, it was a face-saving way to fail. So similarly, in the 19th century, women used to fall victim to hysteria all the time. But by the 1920s, hysteria was virtually gone as a diagnosis because it was no longer socially acceptable to have hysteria. Instead, people would collapse into neurasthenia, which is fatigue, or nowadays it's back pain. So notice that hardly anyone got into Harvard and I barely have 125 a good day. So notice hardly anyone has stomach ulcers anymore. So many ostensibly medical conditions, according to John Sarno, MD, and Howard Schubner, MD, they're our brains blocking painful realizations from becoming conscious and distracting us with these physical symptoms. But the physical symptoms will always accord with what is socially acceptable. So it used to be that people were always getting ulcers. Now people don't get ulcers, they get back pain. So we've got an explosion in chronic pain over the past 2 decades because chronic pain and back pain, this is a socially acceptable way to fail. This is a socially acceptable way to seek out love and nurturing. This is a socially acceptable way to drop out of life. This is a socially acceptable way to collapse.